Google SEM. Some people think that it's the worst thing ever. We personally think that this is the most effective way to reach your customer, or one of the most effective ways to reach your customers. And we're going to talk about why right now. So Ryan, why don't you give us a little explanation of what Google SEM is broadly?
Yeah, so SEM stands for search engine marketing. A lot of people confuse this with SEO, which is search engine optimization. So essentially, search engine marketing can be in the form of either Google ads or Bing ads are the most popular forms. Basically, you're paying your way up to the top of the search results. My background in SEM, my first job out of college was a full-time SEM account manager for a large corporation here in Des Moines. And I was, with help of another person, managing ad budgets that were $200,000-$300,000 a month. I mean, these were some big boy ad budgets. So on a day in and day out basis, I was in the weeds going through different search terms, ad optimizations. I was in the complete weeds of SEM, one would say.
One time you said to me that good SEO or good SEM is good SEO, meaning that you're looking for the right keywords to target on, and you want to find negative keywords you don't want to show up for clicks. Explain that a little bit, what that is and how it's actually you do a lot of the same research you would be doing for SEO.
Yeah, absolutely. So keyword research is a huge factor in both SEM and SEO, and a lot of people don't realize that. I want to say about 75-80%, depending on the data. It's probably switched since I last checked. People that search often click the first result no matter what. They don't care that there's a little ad logo next to the result that they see on the SERP or the search engine results page. They're clicking the number one result regardless, and that's why SEM is such an effective strategy most of the time.
So when it comes to SEM, what are some things that we need to focus on?
Yeah, so the first thing you want to focus on when dealing with SEM in general is if it's right for your business, right? So a lot of businesses that are interest-based want to go more heavy on the social ads perspective. But if you're more intent-based, you want to go on the SEM or the search engine marketing perspective.
And so just for people like myself that, don't necessarily know what you mean by that, what is intent versus attention?
Yep.
You said attention, correct? Right?
Intent. Yeah, intention, yep. Same thing.
No, intent versus...
Interest.
Intent
versus interest.
Intent versus interest, yes.
Yep. So what I mean by intent is, a lot of demand-based businesses, so like plumbing. I give the example of plumbing a lot when people ask me about this. So typically, like if something goes wrong in your house, like bad toilet, bad pipes, whatever, your intent is to go to Google and say plumber near me or plumbing company. That's an intent-based search, right? So when you go to Google and you type plumbing company near me, I promise you there's going to be companies running ads, whether to get you on the phone, whether to get you to a contact form. That's what SEM is in a nutshell.
Gotcha. So the inverse of that is they're perusing through their phone or whatever it is, and an ad comes by, and we try to snag their attention. This is people who are looking for a specific product or service. We can get directly to those ones seeking you out in the easiest way possible.
Yep, correct. You're paying to play in SEM.
That's beautiful. So why do you think some people dislike SEM?
Obviously, it costs money, right? No one wants to spend money on advertising when, someone will say, SEO, it's free. We'll just write all this content and get to the top of search, and we're not going to pay for anything. Well, that's great. The problem is in most competitive industries, you have to run ads in conjunction with an SEO strategy. You're not going to win long term.
Why is that? Why do they need to play in tandem with each other?
Yeah, because like I said, it's a pay to play system. In competitive industries, the people at the top realize that you have to pay to be at the top of the search results. Because back to what I said earlier, about 80% or so of people click the top result no matter what. They're not caring if it's an ad or if it's an organic result. And so knowing that fact, people are going to pay their way to the top.
So one thing that I think is interesting is that they're almost, I almost get a sense of like that SEO is more superior because they are doing the work to actually be the best, rather than SEM. You can basically skip the line. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so my strategy that I've done with clients in the past, and currently my biggest client, is for SEO, we use what's called a long tail keyword strategy. So we have our base keywords that are pretty competitive, and we'll run search ads to those base keywords. But long tail keywords that aren't competitive, we're not going to run search ads for because it's not competitive, right? So no one's paying ads to get to these long tail keywords.
Gotcha. So one thing that I think is interesting is I've heard people getting to people organically is,
that's
organic.
SEO. Yep.
And it feels gross to throw some money and just jump the line, right? Well, from what I would say is that one way or another, you're spending money or time and effort on your own, whether it be through SEO and optimizing for that to get to them, or we can do it the most efficient way, which is just skip to the front of the line and get right in front of them through SEM. What do you think about that?
Exactly. Like I said before, obviously a company would ideally want to have full heavy SEO and not pay their way to the top and get free traffic. That's everyone's dream, right? But in a more saturated and competitive market of internet, on the internet. So like in our instance, right, we have a client where we're running SEM or Google ads for, and we're bringing 80% of overall traffic every single month. And that's generating 50% of the sales just from what we see on the front end, right?
80% of the traffic to the website from SEM.
Correct. And the thing that people don't realize is like, let's say you're running Google ads and they expect someone to buy on that first touch, right? But the reality is most people, when they come to a site off an ad, they don't buy right away. Well, if you capture that traffic, whether you get an email, you can remarket to those same people, then you're getting that traffic back on the platform. So there's still the point I'm trying to make is there's still value regardless if they don't buy on that first touch.
Now, does that mean we just completely throw out SEO?
No, you should never completely throw out SEO.
So we're always optimizing for SEO, always doing everything we can on that end. This is just the most efficient way. So if you need if you have a product where people are looking for that product, and you know that they're looking for that product, it's evident, you know it for sure, and you need to get it right in front of them. This is the quickest, easiest. The website honestly doesn't even need to be that great, and you can get sales.
Yeah, like I believe that SEO should always play a role in anyone's online marketing strategy. But SEM takes that to another level, right? And especially in some industries where it's almost impossible to compete in SEO if you don't have a high DR or domain rating. SEM is really, that kind of that marketing idea that will get you to the top in certain industries.
So now we've said some aggressive things and how effective, how powerful this is. Does that mean we also throw out good design, quality design, quality user experience? Does that all get thrown out too?
No, there's a lot that goes into SEM. And like you just touched on design, landing page is a big one. Landing page is actually part of the quality score that Google assesses to ads. The quality score is based on landing page, ad text, and I believe the keyword relevancy is the other one. So yeah, if someone, you can run ads all day, all you want, but if someone clicks your ad, comes to your site's not very good, your design sucks, they're going to bounce and you just wasted money, So that's a huge part of it.
And sometimes you just find the market isn't there and that you gambled on you committed to a product that's not for sale and that no one wants, basically. What else do we need to talk about when it comes to SEM?
Yeah, so SEM, also there's a very important disclaimer, right? It's not going to work every time. There are certain industries where I would stay away from SEM. A couple that I can think of are residential real estate and lawyers and any high ticket niche like that. The reason I say that is because you're going to be paying about $10, $15, sometimes $20 a click because the cost of that conversion is so high for certain industries.
Well, you're probably competing against things like LegalZoom and other big...
Exactly. You're competing against these big players.
Budgets you can't beat.
Budgets you can't compete with. So there are certain industries where you have to throw that disclaimer and say, hey, I would not recommend Google Ads for this. And some agencies don't care. You know what I'm saying? Whenever a potential client asks about, should I run Google Ads, you always have to put a disclaimer about, hey, it could work, it couldn't work. We're going to do the research, and then we'll get back to you and give us our best input, right?
Yep. Yeah. So what would you say you think you're someone who is a right fit for SEM with your product, your service, whatever it happens to be? What's our first steps?
Yeah, so the first step is to analyze what their niche is. Like I talked about, not every niche is going to work for this. So that's step one. Once you analyze the niche, step two, I would say, is keyword research. So there's a ton of keyword research tools out there. Google has their own free keyword planner. Google Trends is another free one. You can use premium tools. I always like to look at keyword research, see how many monthly searches certain terms get, along with how competitive they are. A lot of these tools also offer the CPC or cost per click for certain keywords, and if the cost per click is too high, then that's something we're going to want to discuss, that might not be the best route to go for. After the keyword research, typically what I've found is some clients already have previous Google Ads accounts. So a lot of that is going through an audit of, okay, what did they do? What did they do right? What did they not do right? What do their ads look like? What is their keyword strategy? What is their negative keyword strategy? What's their bidding strategy? There's a lot of different technical stuff in the weeds that I probably won't get into here. But a good overall audit of their existing account, if they already have one, is the next step to that. And then the step after that, obviously, is brainstorming a strategy of what we're going to implement.
And so one other thing that you've brought up, and I think this is interesting too, because there are a lot of people, you can run this on your own. Small business, especially if you're a small business and you just don't have the budget to pay a professional to do it. We'll get on there and run it anyways. But there are ways, and I'm worried that we'll get forever shadow banned without realizing it by saying Google might do wrong things. What are some things that Google actually will take your money and you're not realizing it and you're running inefficiently? Because
Absolutely.
you could have the perfectly optimized Google score according to them, but even for my field where I have a lot more time and effort in this area, Facebook will do the same thing with low quality ad placement, but they make tons of money off it. So what are some things that they need, that someone who can't necessarily hire us but it needs to do this should be paying attention to?
For sure. Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that one. So one thing too, when people first get set up, they don't realize a lot of times Google takes them through this like Google Ads Express program. I don't know if they've renamed that or rebranded that now, but it's not the real Google Ads platform. It's like this beginner-friendly version for novices and people who don't know what's going on. And so a lot of times by default, Google is going to throw settings at you that will incentivize them. So broad match is an example. So a lot of times people think, oh, I want to bid on this keyword, but they don't realize the different match types. There's broad match, phrase match, exact match. Exact match is the most narrow. Broad match, obviously, is the most broad. So when people are bidding on all these broad match keywords, that's more money for Google because a broad match keyword will, basically capture everything, right? So people is an example. So broad match people. If you're going to run an ad for People Magazine or broad match people, that's going to attract any single sentence with the word people in it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, and Google will recommend things like that. So if someone's new to this, they don't realize what's going on. And so, and also too, the different ad types, right? Responsive search ads, the extensions, tracking conversions is a big one. Some people don't realize the importance of conversion tracking and tagging your URLs for different parameters. That's a huge deal. There's just a ton of different aspects that Google will throw at you to the average person or the novice that doesn't realize that Google is making money from this. They don't have your best interests in mind.
So one thing, if you are someone who is doing this for yourself, you think, hey, we can't afford having a team of people like us to come in and specialize for you. In the long term, we may actually end up saving you money. And it's not evident at that point because you're seeing some success. So at some point, if it feels like, hey, I feel like I could get more efficiency out of this, you come to someone like us, correct?
Exactly. And you also have to make sure you're capturing that traffic, right? Like I said before, just because someone comes there for the first time and doesn't buy, are you getting their email? Are they filling out a contact form where you at least have some sort of information where you can back up with these people? That's another key thing to think about when you're running ads. It's not just the first time touch.
We're always collecting data points. And again, back to you, how Google takes your money. The approach is narrow, right? Negative
Narrow to
keywords,
start.
narrow.
Yep. Narrow. My strategy is I always go narrow to start, very conservative.
Which is strange because usually you blanket wide, see what's working.
Yeah, so I've done both of those, and obviously it's niche dependent, and I've found that I like to go narrow first. The reason I do that is if we're not seeing traction, I can say, okay, I'll open up the floodgates a little bit, and then we'll go more broad and see what comes in. And then once you start going more broad, you start seeing the different search terms, and then you can allocate your spend and optimize your different keywords for the search terms that come in.
Well, when we go narrow, too, a lot of times it's, well, this is what's obvious, and let's start with just what's obvious and see how that performs. And then what we've run into before too is that where it's what's obvious isn't working, and so it's like we got to go into some areas that are similar but aren't the same because we might be dealing with something where they are looking for this solution but they don't know the option is there.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And I like to go narrow as well too because then you're really qualifying your traffic at that point. When you go as narrow as you possibly can with exact match keywords, you're really qualifying that traffic. Also too, if you have a brand new client and you just open the floodgates in month one and let's say they spend $5,000 and get no leads, 1 or 2 leads. How are you going to say that to how are you going to explain that to a client?
Because we wasted all their money on bad clicks. Yep.
So that's why I like the narrow approach more, especially for newer clients.
Yep. Yeah. On Facebook, all the other tools too. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve. So that makes total sense.
Yep.
I like the approach that we've done so far. It's been effective. I mean, we're as far as we've experienced being extremely effective with it. So, what else, is there anything else we need to talk about this?
Yeah, I would also touch on too, like I talked about the first touch thing. So I would always make sure you have a conversion in mind when you're running ads.
Yes, that's huge, and it's so funny because a lot of times people don't.
Nope.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen ads where people just run it to their homepage and expect magic to happen.
Mm-hmm. No, well, that's where our approach is: isolated landing page where we can't get off that page. We either have a phone number that's being tracked or a form to fill out so that we can show you the exact numbers that we're giving to you. You know exactly how effective this thing is, and we will go down and track down to the last dollar that we earned for you. And that's what the one thing I love about SEM is it's really easy to put the dollar to the spend.
Yep.
We can say this is how much you spent with us and this is how much you made from us.
That's the beautiful thing about using Google Ads and like Google Tag Manager is Google Ads has their own pixel where you can install in the back end of your site, and then if someone comes through, you can obviously see all the data that comes through. Did they convert? Did they not? That's the beauty about using a tool like Google Ads.
Yeah, it's in the best interest. Everybody wins, and I also think we very quickly find out if it's not the right fit.
Exactly. Yeah, give it a couple month test run. If it's not the right fit, we'll shift that ad budget somewhere else.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
All of the clients that have worked with us for SEM, I mean, they've received a return on investment. That's for sure.
There's a positive amount of money coming into their pockets through working with us. So.
Nice.
So that's what that's kind of what we've come to learn with Google SEM. And if you're someone out there that's interested in learning more about this, Ryan, we don't have to expect to do business with us. We don't have to become our client. You can reach out and we'll freely talk to you about it, help you work through it, point you in the right direction, collaborate with you if you need collaboration. You can reach out to Ryan or I. This is something that we've put as like a front part of our business because we want to do tons of this, because once you get this baby running, it's a money maker that is a very low maintenance and everybody's just happy.
Absolutely. And just some closing remarks too, like Jeremiah said, in our clients that we're running search engine marketing with, it's kind of been a hands-off. I mean, at first you're running into the account.
It takes a few weeks. And
it takes a few weeks to build up the strategy and go into the weeds and create the accounts. But once that's set up and sales start rolling in, it's relatively hands-off for both us and the client.
Yeah, we're just reporting how good everything's going typically. So reach out if you have any questions.